Hello and welcome to the CRM Zen Show where we talk about all things Zoho. This is episode 98. Can you round up to 15? Recorded on Friday, June 12th, 2020. From Zenatta Consulting, I'm Brett Martin.
And I'm Tyler Colt. Let's get right on into the news.
So let's start with one of your favorite applications, Tyler, Zoho Analytics. They had small updates, but look like they're pretty significant.
Yeah, so there's one little update around adding in pattern fills for charts. This is basically where you could make, additionally to having different colors in different chart elements, you can now add patterns, right? So you could add like diagonal lines, little star call outs, kind of polka dots. So it's just a couple different ways to differentiate different pieces of data on a chart. And, when it comes to anything around chart graphics, it's definitely the more the merrier situation, as being able to color code and pattern code different elements definitely helps for visualizing your data. And then they've also added a slew of new sources of data, which you can use to pull in a variety of different feeds. So they've added a whole bunch of different cloud databases to the system that weren't there before. So, a couple call outs would be Microsoft Azure, the Oracle Cloud. They have Google Cloud SQL and Google BigQuery. They've also added kind of a standard FTP connector as well. So a couple different sources there that are pulling in data from outside of the Zoho world, which, is actually a use case that comes up relatively often, where you might have some CRM data and some operations data stored outside of Zoho, and you want to bring it in and kind of report on it all in one big bucket. And so this kind of expands the capabilities of analytics for doing that.
Yeah, they're making it easier and easier to get to the data. So what does that work drive data look like? Is that you're basically going to go into work drive and point it to a specific spreadsheet?
Yes, I've not connected with WorkDrive, but that's what I would imagine. That's kind of how it works with Google Sheets or any of the other previous connectors to some of those spreadsheet tools. So yeah, I'd imagine you'll be able to connect into a specific WorkDrive sheet.
Yeah, and a lot of Amazon S3, Redshift. So good stuff. Good stuff. All right. And then Zoho Creator. We've got new APIs. They did it to the CRM last year. Well, they're doing it to Zoho Creator this year. So version 2 API migration time is here. Version 1 APIs will go away on February 20th, 2021. So you've still got time to go ahead and make those changes. But it looks like it's going to bring a lot of nice improvements to Zoho Creator's API interface.
Yeah, and a lot of the time with these migrations, they're definitely pretty quick to do. Previously when they did it to the CRM, it was, just changing a couple characters in a few of your either create or update lines of scripts. So it always depends on what you're doing, but, generally these changes aren't too difficult to make, but it's definitely not something that you want to put off, because if you wait till late January to start up on this, it's going to be a real stressful experience.
And then Writer got a really interesting enhancement on something that we've talked about in the past, which is basically using Zoho Form to create a submission into a Zoho Writer document and then give you that submission back in a PDF. You could even take it to the next level and send it into Zoho Sign. But they've now allowed you to kind of customize your output options after the submission quite a bit. So some pretty nice stuff. You can tailor your success message very nicely, and then your download options. I mean, this is starting to look really, really professional. They're cleaning it up really, really nicely.
Yeah, and it's always nice to be able to have as many different mail merge options as you can, right? So basically you're taking different entries from a form and mapping them directly into some type of document inside of Writer. It's really powerful stuff. We've done a similar implementation around Zoho Sign in the past, where you can actually take a Zoho form and create a signed document from it. So there's kind of a similar integration here.
And then moving on with the news, we've got our usual Zoho Finance Update Apalooza, which seems to happen at the beginning of every month. We just missed it last week. None of these had dropped. So really starting this week, all of these started coming in. So updates for Zoho Books, updates for Invoice, inventory, and subscriptions. I've kind of got the highlights here, but there's just a whole lot more. So if we'll start with books, I think the one that jumps out, and this also carries over into invoices as well, is you can create price lists now with volume pricing, which is it's just huge, and a whole bunch of other things.
Yeah, and so it's interesting because you could already create price lists with volume pricing in the CRM, referencing the standard CRM quotes and invoices. So it's kind of surprising that rolled out there before you could do the same thing inside of books, but it's definitely nice to have where you're basically given a little UI where you can say, if the quantity is between 5 or 10, sell it for this price. If it's between 11 and 30, sell it for this price. And so it's a pretty quick and easy way to map out all your different bulk discounting.
Yeah, and they also, you can now send SMS messages to remind customers when their payments are late. I'm not sure I'd want to harass our clients that way with texting them. You can now lock individual modules as well, so you can basically lock things internally, and you can track your staff costs by the hour. So they've kind of added in a whole lot of nice features here. There's constant, I notice, development. Every single one of these updates they do, there's some very specific things around India as well. I mean, their growth there has just been incredible. So they now have Yes Bank integration over in India as well. And in Australia, they've added cloud payroll integration. So some nice enhancements across the board there. And as you move into invoice, pretty much exactly the same kind of thing. There's really nothing different in that entire look. Because invoice, really, you don't, if you have books, you don't necessarily need invoice, because invoice is part of books. And so every enhancement you get in Zoho Invoice, you also will get in Zoho Books. In inventory, though, quite a few different things came up this time around. So some Amazon UK integration, and the big one is you've got UPS International Shipping Phase 1. So they are now building that directly into Zoho Inventory.
Yeah, that's definitely nice to have. I'm still waiting on them to kind of complete the loop on shipping. There's one little thing that's popped up for a couple of our customers here recently, is that there's no way to actually print a label from Zoho. So if you got your little shipping label printer, right now your option is basically to download it as a PDF or as an image, and then bring it over to your software that you use to actually print the labels themselves. So that's kind of the one last little thing that would be really nice to have there with shipping, just because it's that last step that you'd really like to be able to do inside of Zoho.
Yeah, and I think depending on what carrier, for most cases though, with UPS, you're just going to basically put that nice little plastic folder on the outside of the box. So by printing this stuff out, you're just stuffing it inside there. That does it, but it is always a download and print. Are you saying there's that whole extra step of you actually have to download and print rather than just say print directly?
Yeah, so it always depends on how people are making labels. But if you've got like a little zebra printer, right, that actually prints the adhesive
Right.
label that you can use, there's no real way to directly print to that right now.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but hopefully it gets there. And then subscriptions, you can now allow customers to make partial payments on their subscriptions as long as you've got auto charge enabled, which I don't quite know how that would work, because it's a subscription, so they usually aren't given an opportunity to do so. So it must only be on the initial payment, or maybe I guess they have to log into the portal. They're going to have to go into the customer portal and then make some sort of a partial payment on their overall subscription option. I can't see that this would be something that anyone would want, but it's there now. And then they also added in some social share buttons on the hosted payment pages, so you can easily have direct people to your social media pages.
Yeah, some nice little updates there, but it is interesting just because subscriptions are generally going to auto bill, and especially if you have auto charge enabled, they're just going to hit the credit card for the full amount. So yeah, it must be something that's running through their customer portal, and maybe they could prepay a partial amount of a future subscription, because I know that the way subscriptions works is that if that billing date's on June 10th, on that date they're going to hit the credit card for the full amount. So it must be a prepayment option, I would imagine. Or you could set up maybe a custom case by case where people can pay it over a couple weeks or something like that. Definitely an interesting thing to bring into subscriptions, as it's generally fully auto billed.
And in mobile app news, Project Dashboard is now accessible in the Zoho Projects mobile application. Really not a lot here. It's available in the latest version 3.3 of Zoho Projects for Android. So dashboards have not been available in the mobile app, and if you'd like to see them, you can. The article that we link to is pretty much what you are seeing if you're actually watching the video. It's just a flashing screen showing you all of the various dashboards. I think they need to slow down the speed of sometimes of their animated GIFs. They tend to be rather, I feel like I'm going to have a stroke every time, Tyler. But
A little
not
frantic.
much here. Yeah, it is a little frantic, but not much really here. But if you use the mobile application, then great. There you go.
And
You can now
it
look
does
at it.
too also give you click through on the charts when you're looking at it on mobile as well. So if you have like a chart graphic and maybe it's showing you open versus closed tasks, you could actually tap on the open section. It'll give you the list underneath. It's always nice to have those drill throughs, right? Where you could start with the dashboard, but then get into the actual data itself.
Yeah, man, I tell you, it's like, you know how like sometimes you're watching a TV show and it says warning, flash photography. I feel like this needs to be warning, rapidly flashing animated GIF. Run while you can. All right, let's get to the next slide before I stroke out. All right, it's your implementation of the week. What do you got for us this week, Tyler?
Yeah, so this week we have one from Zoho Analytics. So if we remember a couple weeks back, maybe about a month, we talked about analytics rolling out a data snapshot feature. So this snapshot basically takes a snapshot of data at a certain given point in time and adds it to a table, right? So I can set this up either daily, weekly, or monthly, and every time that specific cadence rolls around, it takes a new snapshot and adds it to a running list, right? So if we had a list of 100 deals and we took a snapshot every day for 3 days, right, we'd end up with a list of 300 deals in this separate little history table. And this can be an actually really nice thing because you can track movement of these data or these records over time. All right. So for one of our clients, we basically set up a little snapshot report where they can see both the count and the amount related to these different deals moving through stages over time. Right. So on the first day, they have, $100,000 sitting in stage one. On the second day, they have 80,000 in stage one and 20 in stage two, right? And so on and so forth. And you can kind of see the flow of these different data points over a set cadence of time. But the nice thing is you're also able to drop in any of the standard filters. So I could look at that report and filter it by sales rep or teams of sales reps to see, who is most effectively moving data through the CRM. One of the last little benefits to this is that it gives you a look into compliance with CRM procedures, right? So when you set up a deal flow and a pipeline, there's kind of an expectation that people are going to accurately move deals along as they're making progress on those sales. But if you're only looking at data at a specific point in time, you can't really tell, right? So if you're just looking and you see that you've got some deals throughout all these different stages, you might look in 2 weeks again and not really remember what you saw last time. And it could be really similar looking data. But so this actually gives you a way to see, if your team as a whole or if specific users are actually moving things along through those different deal stages, how you'd like them to.
Yeah, it's a super big deal. Oftentimes you'll want to look back. Well, where were we last week? Where are we now? And the data's changed. And this has had a lot of companies that have basically pulled the data using some of these third-party tools and dropped it into basically spreadsheets so they can keep it static and they can look back and they can do those kind of things. So very, very nice to have. It's
and it was quick and painless to set up too. It's a little bit particular. We've started to build one out for leads as well. I did notice there was kind of an issue where if there's any invalid data in your leads table, the snapshot will fail. So for example, in the email field for their leads data, they had a couple data points that weren't real email addresses. And so it identified those as not matching an email address. And so the snapshot failed. So there's a couple key scenarios where you have to manage your data quality. But for pulling things like deal amount, deal stage, deal owner, where we know that the data is going to be formatted properly, it works like a charm.
So it can be a very picky snapshot, huh?
Yeah, but a lot of the time, though, for a snapshot, you don't really need things like email or phone number, right? Because you're expecting those to be the same. You care
but
more
the whole
about
snapshot,
a deal stage.
it was failing altogether, though, you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Like no snapshot was being taken?
Yep, exactly.
Right. Okay. And moving on to things we noticed. This really isn't something that we noticed. It kind of was, and then there's an article about it. but they were talking about over on the Zoho Partner Portal. But this is a long time coming, and it's so simple. But Zoho in the CRM, under activities, you have calls, you have tasks, and you have events. And what events really are is they are meetings. And Zoho is changing the name of events to meetings, so we can all applaud there. Anybody who's a new sign up, you'll see that on Monday, and then existing customers, you're not going to see it until July 20th. It's slowly going to roll out. They're having trouble getting the mobile. It was supposed to roll out last week at once, but there's some mobile app issues and making those changes and a couple other things. But it's really minor. It's just a name change, but it's one that's been kind of needed.
Yeah, and I think it fits a lot better with, what people actually use those records for, right? I mean, every now and then you'll see someone use it to schedule like an event, like a conference or something, but really most of the time people are using them to track different meetings or scheduled engagements with their clients.
Yeah, and now I think it kind of fix calls. There's just so much around calls. I mean, so often we tell people don't log a call as a call, log it as a task, because logging as a call has so many extra steps, and it wants to set reminders, and it does all sorts of things. And if they could, I almost wish they'd merge the call and task into one, and just flip it as to what is it. It's a call, it's a task, based upon on basically some layout rules, if you will, or something like that, because that would just clean things up significantly there. But this is definitely, as far as task management goes in the CRM, it's a step in the right direction.
Absolutely. And then we have one other little thing that we noticed this week, and it's pretty minor, but it's definitely a quality of life improvement. So inside the CRM, you have a little tab called Dashboards. For some people, it's now called Analytics, another thing that they're kind of changing the name of. And previously, you couldn't clone any of your components inside of there. So if I had, 3 tables that I wanted to make, or 3 little charts, and maybe each one I wanted to have a different filter, right? So I want to see, deals closed over time based on 3 different lead sources. I'd have to manually create each one. And they're pretty quick to create in there. It's not like you're suffering. It's an extra 10 minutes maybe to just copy all the parameters over. But now you can just clone them. So I could just make one as my template and then clone it and change one of the filters. So it's just a little quality of life improvement that can definitely help, because sometimes you may be creating a lot of different elements. Maybe you want a whole set of KPIs. You're going to have some custom targets for all these different users. And really every single one of those is going to look and function the same, other than just like 1 or 2 little parameters in there. And so now you're able to just quickly and easily clone them and make any of the edits that you need.
Yeah, that is absolutely fantastic, because something, you're right, doesn't take a lot of time, but sometimes it can take a lot of time. Maybe you're doing an extremely detailed component and you just want to, do 1 or 2 other things. So
yeah, and it's good timing. Actually, we have a client who we're going to build out some new dashboards for, and basically on each of their dashboards, the sales reps are going to have some monthly, quarterly, and yearly revenue targets. But the way Zoho works, I'll need to create those custom for each person, because they're all going to have different static targets that they're all shooting for. And so this rolled out at a perfect time, because it's going to save us some blood, sweat, and tears in putting those together.
Yeah. The only thing I wish they'd get rid of is or maybe increase the limits for the number of components you can have on a dashboard.
Yeah, it's only 10.
It's just
only
irritating.
10.
And you can do it. Now you have to create another dashboard.
Yep.
Right? And just, because a lot of times the components you want to see are really simple and really small. You might have 4 components across the top row, just giving you kind of snapshots of what's going on. And it's really a pain when you bump against that. So maybe that's because of all their limitations, that's one I just don't get. It's just so low.
Part of it could be is like a general best practice for making dashboards is that, less is more, right? So like if you have a dashboard with 50 components, it's probably a little overkill. That's too much to look at. But what you kind of highlighted is that you may have a lot of individual or small components, like a quick KPI, like just leads converted in a box, revenue
Today's
in a box.
Leads, right? You could have
And
all this kind of things, right?
And each of those counts as a full component, just the same way that like a more expanded bar chart or pie chart will. So definitely be nice. I think like 15, even just rounding up to something like 15 would give a little more breathing room if you have a lot of components on there.
Yeah. 15 is not a round number. You can't round. I guess you have to round up to 16. I don't know. How's that work? let's round up to 20 if you ask me.
Why not?
Hey, all right. In this week's reads, we've got two of them. They're all 5 ways. So if this is your 5-way week on what to do things here. So 5 ways to use audio in business to business marketing. And this one comes from HubSpot. It's a good read. As you know, as I go through, it seems like we oftentimes are pulling in HubSpot articles here. It's just so much more than podcast. And it talks about the overall listening process, how on all of the different reasons that audio is so big, and then it kind of comes in and takes you through it. And one of the things I really thought was interesting, and this is a very long article because it also talks about how to do it and produce it and what you should produce and audio snippets and long form audio and all of the different types of audio that there are. But it talks about just take your blogs and have someone read your blogs and have those in there. And I'm hearing this more and more. The other day someone was talking about news stories like NPR News. You can read the articles, but they also have somebody speak the articles, and they kind of become these attached things. So for people that are just wanting to get these little news snippets, they can subscribe to them. So it's kind of a podcast. It's not a podcast, but to me, this kind of took it beyond the podcast.
Yeah, it's definitely a powerful tool, because if you commit to just providing, useful and free information, then people will listen. I mean, you have a lot of, what they call found time, right? So it's time, doing the dishes or driving to work, right? Where you just want something interesting to kind of keep your brain active while you're, making your way into the office. And so the podcast and sort of audio can be a really powerful tool.
Yeah, it's great. It's funny. One of my kids was a huge audiobook listener, and I'm just not. I've just been traditional. I got to read. But what I'm finding now is I'm actually combining the two. Amazon with their Kindle, you basically can buy the Kindle and then get the audiobook for an extremely discounted rate, and then they go together. So you can be reading the book, and maybe you want to you talk about found time, you're taking a shower, right? So just, if you've got a waterproof speaker, you're playing the book. So as you're doing certain things, you can really maybe get a chapter or two in just audio-wise in between reading. It's a good use of time. It also it's fascinating. I never thought I would do it, but I have to tell you, it's a great way to read. Is it still reading when you're listening?
I think it counts.
And then Zoho has a guest blog by an Etty Dubé from a company called Outgrow, and this is actually our application of the week. Outgrow is pretty interesting. This is 5 ways to increase tips with interactive content. And what Outgrow does, they allow you to produce kind of interactive, well, they call it interactive content, but I prefer wearing, the example that they show is I prefer this kind of headphone over the ear. I prefer in-ear headphones. I prefer wireless headphones, all of these kind of things. So you're kind of building this very, very nice, cool, interactive content, and it drives engagement with your overall audience. And this is just 5 nice tips on really what kind of content you can do, put it on your website, and hopefully drive leads and drive additional engagement.
Yeah, it's also used kind of as a segmentation tool as well. If you can be tracking these activities, for the headphones example, if you're, a shop that sells headphones, you may find that, an overwhelming percentage of people prefer closed back headphones, at least that are engaged with your content. So maybe you want to allocate more time to finding new vendors for those, or, increasing your marketing around that specific product.
Yeah, and they've got a really
It seems
cool
like a nice learning tool.
It really is. It really is. We'll talk about it here in a little bit. All right, and then on Zenatta.com, we've got a whole slew of stuff. So 3 new videos for you this week. One of the things we've been doing is kind of going back through podcasts, through webinars we've done, through various things, and oftentimes we've given pretty big explainers or nice detailed explainers on things. And rather than having people hunt for them, we're kind of pulling them out as a nice little breakout videos. So 3 of those that we posted up this week were from our CRM overview and best practices podcast. So module overview, Tyler gives a nice breakdown and explanation of that. Workflow rules, how to set that up as well. And then email setup, which is one we get asked all the time. how do I set up my email in Zoho CRM? It's dead simple. So we've got 3 new videos that we've posted on there. They're not really new. If you want to get all this stuff and more, just watch the whole webinar. And then a couple more resource guides we found. Both of them are, one of them's pretty interesting. It's the CRM Zoho CRM Custom Apps, a beginner's guide. This is really getting started with Creator and connecting Creator to Zoho CRM. And then this whole detailed series that we found on Zoho CRM, this is actually the 3rd module in that. We seem to be posting these in reverse. We posted number 5, number 4, and now we've posted number 3. I don't know why, but this is the order we're doing it in. It's a countdown. I don't know. I'm so excited to see what happens when we get to 1. Anyway, this is a 40-page guide on securing your data in Zoho CRM, and it's detailed. So everything from 2-factor authentication to blocking IP addresses. This is super detailed. I read through it, and there were things I didn't even know existed in Zoho CRM from a security perspective. So I recommend you taking a look at these as well. And also go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. We're putting new content out every week, or repurposed content, some kind of content every week. All right, and our app of the week is a company called Outgrow, and they have an extension that's been published for Zoho CRM, and this is really kind of in talking about this. This allows you to put highly customized content, interactive content on your website. So it's really, if you want to have a pricing calculator, if you want to have an ROI calculator, if you want to do these super interactive surveys, all of those kind of things, you can use their service to do this, and then it can write back to the CRM, and it can grade them and score the CRM. And it's a fairly nice product with some fairly decent integration into Zoho CRM. So I kind of recommend giving it a try. There's some nice overviews on it. I don't know, Tyler, I swear I think we've talked about this before.
Maybe it might have been a while back there. I'm interested to see they have a chatbot as well. And we've talked about it a couple different times. That Zoho's chatbot, which is called Zobot, that lives inside of Sales IQ, can be an absolute bear to set up if you have some kind of custom, or if you have more complicated questions and answers that you may want it to be able to answer. So I'd be interested to play around with their chatbot and see if it's a little bit more user-friendly to set up, because Zobots are definitely a significant investment of time if you want to build out anything beyond kind of a simple little engagement tool.
It's interesting, too, because this is a guest, we came across this because it's a guest blog post on the Zoho blog. In a lot of ways, these are nothing more than Zoho forms, right? Really nice Zoho forms that have kind of been detailed up. It's kind of taking forms and surveys really to the next level with some of the stuff they're doing here. So it's good stuff. But, like I say, they do have chatbots as well. And I don't know how difficult they would be to edit, but it's got to be, like you say, it's got to be easier than it is with Zobot. With Sales IQ Zobot across the board.
And that's not to take anything away from Zobot. It's insanely powerful, but in being that powerful, it means that there's just a whole bunch that you have to code, even if you wanted to do simpler things.
So I'm going to check out Outgrow. We'll see what they can do there. But I'll tell you, on the surface, it looks really good, and super slick integration too. All right, and let's move on to our tip and trick. This is a Zoho Desk one, and this is, I'm not sure about delete, but I guess you could delete tickets. I think I'd want to set this more for complete, but this is auto delete tickets. So this is how to set up. Basically, you've got desk. Maybe you just want to delete everything that's been closed. You just want to clear your desk out. I can't imagine. I don't know. What do you think the use case is where you'd want to delete tickets rather than close them out, Tyler? It's hard to say.
Yeah, I don't really see where because you want that whole history of tickets, right? This one comes from Zoho in their Desk Community Learning Series. It'd be nice if you kind of tweak this script a little bit for closing them out. Right. So one thing that happens a lot is you may have, back and forth with the customer, and on the last email that you send out, it seems pretty much like everything's good to go, but you leave it in pending because you're not 100% sure. And maybe you'd want a week or two after that, it automatically closes it. But generally speaking, you want to save that whole history of engagement
Well, what they're saying here is they're saying let's clean out spam. So they give you a pretty straightforward custom function that tells you how to delete it, and then you're tying it together with a workflow rule. And now I get it. They're saying let's say you get these spammy tickets, which we do all the time.
Yep.
So it's saying rather than have those even clog your inbox, as soon as they come in, just set up a rule that says if the subject contains these words, or it's got, if the email contains these email IDs, people that are just keep spamming you all the time, or then basically at that point go ahead and run the custom function. So
Gotcha.
I imagine you could set up a workflow rule around this that would be pretty tight, and would let you.
Yeah, and that you'd actually want to do, because you wouldn't want those to contribute to any type of reporting or analytics on how many tickets you're getting, how fast we are at closing them. So that has some real business value there.
Yeah, so I should probably just set this up in my email anyway, because evidently there are millions and millions of lists of Zoho users out there, because every day
I know we get so many of those, because what companies will do is they'll go and they'll find a company and they'll assume that our domain is zenatta.com for our emails, which is a good assumption. And then they'll email success or support or info, right? All the kind of general inboxes, and just spam them so hard. The one challenge, though, that I would see with this is that they don't use the same email address a lot. People that are doing that generally are spoofing different email addresses, right? So we'll get like the same spam email from 3 different senders, right, over a period of time. So it'd be tricky to play the game of cat and mouse, right, and figure out what the commonality is that you could use to set this up to delete the right tickets.
Yeah, and they're getting trickier around, at least the spam we get, they get trickier around their subject lines and everything. So anyway, but if you've got one, particular one that's bothering you, I guess you could set up this rule. I think the big thing about this is to modify this.
Yep.
To modify this bit of code to do kind of other things to the tickets. So it's pretty good stuff here. Anyway, thank you, Zoho, for posting that up. And with that, that's a wrap. If you've got questions or comments, be sure to send them to us over at info@zenatta.com, or you can just head over to zenatta.com and click on Drop Us a Line.
Yeah, and on the website is where you'll find full show notes with links to all the stories we discussed today. You can also follow us on your favorite social media platform and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app, as well as on YouTube. We'll see you next Monday.